Alright, so, hey guys, it's Phantom, and welcome back to Ask Phantom, to the Ask Phantom podcast. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be an episode per se. This is probably going to be like what else you're going to see on, or what else you're going to see and hear on the podcast, and like what's going to be talked about. Probably after the fact, like probably after I'm done with the whole online school type of thing. So, as you all know, I'm an advocate for online school and I advocate for like, mental health. Mental health is very, very important to me. And, well, online school and managing mental health is extremely important to me. Um, Seeing as I struggle with mental health, because I I grew up stressed. I grew up very stressed when I was growing up. So the reason, okay, why I advocate for mental health. So you guys probably don't know this, but when I was growing up, okay, I'm I'm a very advanced person. And by very advanced, I mean, well, I'm advanced in a lot of things. I can teach myself how to do things. But the reason why I'm making this, I don't know, like more to come video or whatever, like more to come preview episode, I don't know what to call it. Um, so the reason why I'm making this is because, as I said, I'm a big advocate for mental health um, and things like that. Is when I was growing up, I grew up on a lot of medical. I grew up on a lot of medical shows. Um, so when I was a kid, I would do things like I would watch a lot of medical shows. So I grew up watching TLC. I grew up watching the show on TLC and Discovery Health called Born Schizophrenic, Janny's Next Chapter. It was a really good show, by the way. I loved it. I honestly loved it so much. Um, so I grew up watching people like Oprah, as one does. Well, not everyone watches Oprah, but or not everyone may remember who Oprah is, or like grew up watching Oprah, but I grew up watching like medical shows. I grew up watching Oprah. Um, I watched Dr. Phil a couple of times, but I don't support Dr. Phil at all. Um so like I really don't get me started. So as I said, I am a mental health advocate. I think um advocating for mental health for anybody is very important. It doesn't matter who you are. It's literally so important. So back in okay, so as you know, if you grew up on like old TLC like I did, because I was an early 2000s kid, so I watched a lot of like old TLC, and um I knew Discovery Life. I knew about Discovery Life when it was still called Discovery Health and Fitness. And so every month, well, not every month, but in the month of May, every year, they would do this thing called Psych Week. Um, so basically, if you grew up on like old channels or whatever, like Discovery Health and Fitness, which is now called Discovery Life, there is this thing that they do every year in the month of May, so like coming up soon here. Um okay. So basically, if you guys don't know, okay, so there was a show called Born Schizophrenic um back in the day. I think it aired in 2000 and okay, Born Schizophrenic air date. I'm just going to look it up. Air date. Air date. Oops, I'm sorry. I can't type today. Air date. Okay. Born Schizophrenic air date. Um Discovery Health. So there was like the show called Born Schizophrenic um about this girl named Janny Schofield or Schofield or however you say her last name. I'm pretty sure it's Schofield if I'm pronouncing it right. But like if you were super into health shows like I was growing up, I still am because I like doing research. I don't know. It just fascinates me. I don't know. I wanted to work in the medical field when I was younger. Now I don't. Um but I'm still very fascinated by like medical shows. Um I don't watch every medical show under the sun, but I watch couple, and Born Schizophrenic was a show that I would watch all the time, as well as shows like, you know, Dr. G and like a bunch of other shows, but mainly Born Schizophrenic was a show that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. Like all the time. If you were around if you were around during the era of Discovery Health and Fitness, then you've probably seen the show and heard of this family. So, I recommend you watch it. Um, I definitely recommend you watch it. They probably have, I think they have the show on Amazon Prime, I think, or Discovery Plus. I don't have Discovery Plus, but basically they have, okay, so they had, okay, so basically the rundown of this whole thing. They had, let's see, okay, so, or maybe we could read about it. Um, I don't know, I don't know, to learn more about it. There's also a book. There's also a book on it. Um, or like articles. I'll just look up articles because I think it'll be easier for me to read this, read like, you know, read all this stuff for you because, you know, they don't have the show to go off of anymore. I mean, they have like a documentary. They have a couple documentaries. Um so basically the shows Born Schizophrenic, which was the original show, the original series that aired on TLC that I grew up with. It was my favorite show. Um I know. I mean, I still watched kids shows, but I was really into medical shows. So, I would watch that all the time. So, because the show is no longer airing anymore or it's like really difficult to find sources to watch, plus I mean, I watch sources all the time, but never for podcasts. I usually just read stuff. So, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I am currently looking at right now. I mean, this is just one person's story, but like I'm sure there's a lot of other people that had suffered from certain mental uh disorders, or like mental health disorder, but I'm just going off of this because this is basically what I grew up seeing. This is how I got informed. With like, the fact that there were other conditions out there and stuff. So, let me just okay, so there's like a bunch of different mental health conditions. Like there's I mean, okay, some people obviously can get very stressed, like how I did. I've struggled with stress for a long time. I've struggled with headaches for a long time. Um and so like mental health is very important. Yes, like headaches are a physical thing, but it can it can do with mental health as well. Um but I feel like people should be educated on like mental health conditions properly, and that it should be taken seriously because not all mental health conditions are taken seriously, which is really saddening. People may think, "Oh, like you have blah 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 and you have blah blah blah, you're fine." And like you're sometimes you feel like you're not fine. Like it's overwhelming and it's really scary. Um and plus a lot of people or like a lot of rumors are that this person was never diagnosed or was like misdiagnosed, or that she never had this condition, which I don't really believe that. I mean, like, looking back on it, that I used to watch this show as a kid. I used to watch this show all the time as a kid. Um, I used to watch Born Schizophrenic pretty much on a daily basis, when I was growing up. When it first aired, I loved watching it. And I loved learning. Like, I loved learning about different things. So, like, over the past couple of years, like, things have been going on. Like, I mean, I was subscribed to their YouTube channel for a while, and then, like, some things happened, and there were claims that it was a misdiagnosis, which that can happen sometimes in rare cases. Misdiagnoses can occur with mental health conditions, especially when trying to, figure out what's wrong, like if it's like a mystery condition or something. Um, like you don't know until you like a person doesn't know until they get proper answers. So, so yeah, like honestly, mental health is so important. So, okay, I know this article from the LA Times is like really old. It's like, I don't know, like 8 years old now or something like that. How long ago was 2012? Hold on. Hey Siri, how many years ago was 2012? Okay. So, this article is about 8 years old. A lot of things have changed since then, but I do not believe that, um, like, okay, you can be misdiagnosed with certain conditions when you don't when you are probably experiencing symptoms that are similar to other types of conditions, but in this case, I don't know. In I mean, I don't know. Um okay. So let's start reading this, shall we? Like, okay. If you've never heard of Born Schizophrenic, you know, of that show that I have mentioned, um you can't really watch it I mean, you could watch it if you have Discovery Health, not Discovery Health, Discovery Plus. I think they have it on Discovery Plus. Oh yeah, they have it on Hulu also, but you have to like pay for an add-on. I found out that they have it on Hulu, but you have to pay for add-ons. Hopefully they bring it back to Hulu. I really miss watching it. So this article is about 8 years old, or 7 years old because it's not October yet, and this was published October 3rd, 2012. So, yeah, this was published October 3rd, 2012. So this article is about 7, almost 8 years old. Okay, the year is correct, but usually up until it gets to the month of like the publication date anniversary or like whatever date anniversary, it's like a year behind. So, let's start reading this. It's been a rough week. A few days ago at okay, so it this is kind of like recapping on okay, let me tell you. People that do like articles on on stories like this, they have to do a lot of research, to get their facts correct, because a lot of articles don't um spread misinformation or whatever. So like with these types of stories and coverings, you have to make sure that your information is correct. Um, so basically, I'm just gonna read this. So it's been a rough week. A few days ago at UCLA's Resnick Neuropsychiatric Hospital, 6-year-old Janny toppled a food cart and was confined to her room. She slammed her head against the floor. Oh my gosh, this is really scary. And also they didn't show everything that was they didn't show everything that was that happened, that was depicted on the show. They didn't show everything that occurred. So like I've never read these articles. So it's really scary reading this. I mean, I grew up watching her show, so I kind of have an insight um into into what kind of went on, because it was it aired for educational purposes. So first let's watch this video. Maybe it talks about it. But like, man, looking back on this, um because I did grow up watching her show um when I was growing up. I basically grew up watching her show. So yeah, I didn't know this. I didn't know this happened. So yeah, it's like basically it's kind of the typical video. If you've ever seen this video, it was, I think it was the intro for their show or something. It was like part of the intro to her story or something. I can't remember. It's been so long. I mean, I do vividly remember watching her show. So, yeah. I also watched it back on YouTube for a couple years as well until it stopped airing. I think it aired for a couple seasons. I really can't remember. Um let's see. Yeah, so let's fix that. There we go. Okay.
What's a number checker? Do you know? Yeah, it's where you get to draw numbers blood and make them feel better. Draw numbers blood and make them feel better.
Oh, and also, by the way, if you watch the show, it kind of like tells you when. It's kind of okay. So basically, the show um shows their lives from like 2009 onward. So if you're confused, as I said, that article is like almost 8 years old. And the show depicted their life from and the show showed their life from 2000 and 9 or before that. So yeah, it's like information they've collected or whatever with the article over the years.
Numbers right now? Yeah. Where are they and what are they doing? 2 tens. The real 10.
So if you don't know what schizophrenia is, let me just give you a little. So basically, as I said, if you didn't watch the show, then you probably won't understand what I'm talking about. Or if you've never heard of this condition before, well, it's not a condition. It is a chronic illness. If you've never heard of this before, um, she had what's called early onset. Okay, so she had what was called early onset childhood schizophrenia. And she had tactile hallucinations, and these hallucinations would come in the form of things from things from animals to people to to numbers. And for a for a long time they thought it was, just imaginary friends until, yeah, like you have to watch the show to you have to have watch the show back then to understand what I'm talking about. To get a full understanding of what I'm talking about.
Sometimes I wonder, is she seeing stuff and that it really is there? It's just we're not seeing it. Is that what's happening, Jenny? I don't know.
My two hopes for Jenny are very simple. I want her to be alive, and I want her to be able to find moments of happiness in the day. Even if every day isn't always happy, that she can find some happiness. That's it. That's all. That's all I want from her.
So if Daddy ever comes. No, Daddy's going to take a break right now, so I'm staff, okay? What do you know of schizophrenia? It makes you have imaginary friends. It makes you have imaginary friends?
Mhm.
Are you schizophrenic? Do you know? I think I am schizophrenic.
As a baby, she never slept, and that's, as I always say, it's not hyperbole. She literally would not sleep. She would do 20, 30-minute power naps 24 hours a day. So as a newborn, she was getting 2, 3 hours.
Yeah, this was kind of the intro to the show. This was like a clip from the show that they would, always show like on interviews with like other shows. Because as I've stated, other shows have talked about this family. Um, other shows have talked about this family. So from people like Oprah to Dr. Phil and probably many other shows have talked about it. Um, I also think, I don't know, maybe 2020 even talked about it. Um, because 2020 has covered, and I'm talking about the show 2020, not the year 2020. Okay, like, okay, I'm talking about the show 2020, not the year 2020. So even the show 2020 probably talked about this because they cover a lot of different stories and a lot of different topics. Um, so yeah, let's continue on with this.
Day. Otherwise, she'd just scream. Until we one day figured out that when we stepped outside, she stopped screaming. We went back in, she started screaming again. By 3 months, we were taking her out all day,
Mm-hmm.
every day. And we did this for 2 years straight. One place wasn't enough. It's like her mind was a sponge. We'd go somewhere, she'd absorb it, she'd grow bored with it, and then we'd have to move on to the next place. So we might go to the zoo, a play area, and Barnes & Noble play area all in the same day. At 2, she started to talk about what we thought were imaginary friends.
See, they thought what she was experiencing was just imaginary friends at the start, and then they go on to discover it wasn't imaginary friends.
The first one to appear was 400 the cat, and she would just play with 400. We didn't think too much of it. Oh, I know what she needs. You need a Thorazine, Jenny. The medication, the Thorazine, for every delusion that the Thorazine kills, another one comes to take its place. and Jenny's unwilling to let go of the good ones because they're her friends. She had always been very, very social because, of course, we were out all the time. But then
They have an hour long documentary on this on Discovery Life if you want to watch it for
right around her
yourself.
third birthday, she started to become antisocial. She would scream at people if they called her January. She would tell.
If you didn't know, her full first name is January, and Janny is a nickname. Janny is a nickname that she went by. Because a lot of people have nicknames. So people would call her Janny all the time.
Tell her friends that she didn't want to play with them anymore. At one point, she had probably as many as 20 or 30 friends, and they just slowly all dropped away. And the number of imaginary friends kept growing and growing and growing. And then at 5, the violence began. She began hitting, kicking, biting, throwing shoes. When I would say that she would hit, these weren't like tantrums. The impact of her blows was like she was fighting for her life. And there was no warning. One moment she's like, I love you, Daddy. And then all of a sudden, she is literally trying to scratch my eyes out. She would be like that for 10 or 15 minutes, and then she'd come dead after her. Slowly became obvious, but not till she went into UCLA, that she was disassociating from those violent moments.
This is Miss 60.
And really didn't remember.
If you don't know what UCLA is, it is pretty much everyone knows what UCLA is. UCLA, they're not talking about the college portion of UCLA, they're talking about the medical side of UCLA, because you have to remember UCLA is a medical research campus. It's pretty much everywhere. It's in a lot of places, but it's a medical research campus, so it's basically a hospital. So what UCLA is, let me go on another tab. Let me go on another, or let me try and find another tab here. UCLA. Hospitals. So, if you didn't know, UCLA is a hospital. There's like a bunch of different hospitals. A bunch of different sides to UCLA. There's stuff for, there's like health institutions. There, it's vast and big. So it doesn't just cover like one thing. Like, they cover a lot of different things. But yeah, it's basically it's a medical research campus. It's a college and a chain of medical facilities. So that's really convenient. So Like, that's basically where she would go. Like, that's basically where Janie would go for help
She knew that she'd
or
done
for
something
treatment.
wrong, but she didn't know what.
She was 5 years old, and he was born, and she was running around the hospital going nuts before any medication. I grabbed her. I just grabbed her and put her on my lap. And she turned to somebody who was not there and said, "Ooh, she's not pregnant anymore," in that kind of a voice. And it kind of freaked me out. I'd never heard her talk like that. I'd never heard her talk specifically to like somebody else. We knew she had all the imaginary friends, but it didn't quite, it started to sort of add up, basically. But we did take her to a psychologist because it got to the point where we couldn't live with her. All right, sweetie, how you doing? How are you doing? You ready to go swimming?
Do you think you see your friends more now or less since you went to hospital?
More.
More?
Yeah, more. Because
So sad.
bullying's not helping very much.
Do you want them to go away?
400 I do, and Wednesday I do. Because they're bad.
How are they bad?
They tell me to do bad things,
What kind of bad things?
like hitting and screaming, kicking.
What does it feel like when Wednesday tells you to hit or kick?
Wednesday bites me until I do it.
Okay, and what does 400 do?
She scratches. Because she doesn't know how to hit.
So originally, we had a 2-bedroom apartment in this complex. Keeping Jenny from hurting Bodhi was a 24-hour-a-day job. So we traded in our 2-bedroom for 2 1-bedroom apartments. Jenny's apartment is in this building, and then right across the parking lot, about 100 feet away on the 3rd floor, is Bodhi's apartment. I mean, financially, it's been harder because the two put together are still $500
This
more
is
than what I was paying.
honestly so sad, but like I'm trying to like educate y'all on other forms of why mental health is important.
2-bedroom. When Susan and I were living in the same apartment, it felt more like we were in this together. You know, since we've been in separate apartments, I feel like we are not as close anymore, and that leads us to attacking each other more, blaming each other more. It's because we have no one else to blame. Both of us are under such immense stress at all times. I wish she could have had more of a childhood than she has had, but her illness took that from her. You have to think about it like you have this sweet, blonde, normal-looking 6-year-old girl, but there are all these characters that are out to get her, and as long as she is occupied, they say it back. This is never going to be over. I mean, this is a lifetime illness for her.
Okay, and then the article. So, 6-year-old Janny toppled a food cart and was confined to her room. She slammed her head against the floor, opening a bloody cut that sent her into hysterics. Later, she kicked the hospital therapy dog. Janny normally likes animals, but most of her animal friends, cats, rats, dogs, and birds, are phantoms that only she can see. And phantoms are basically, let's look up what phantoms are. So there's a ton of different types of phantoms, like phantom smells, phantom So, what are phantoms? Okay, so phantoms are. Okay, so phantoms are apparitions or. Okay, according to Google, in dictionary.com, um, a phantom is an appearance or illusion without material substance, as a dream, image, mirage, or optical illusion, a person or thing of merely illusory power, status, efficacy, etc. The Phantom of Fear. Or let's go to dictionary.com. I think it'll be more reliable of a source. Um, so there's a ton of different definitions for what phantom is, um, or for what a phantom is. As I said, there are like things like phantom sounds, phantom voices, like basically hallucinations. Um, she was having hallucinations. Um, oops, sorry. Add. Okay, so according to dictionary.com, what this type of phantom is referring to is a noun. Um, so there's like a ton of different things. An apparition or specter. 2, an appearance or illusion without material substance, as a dream, image, mirage, or optical illusion. A person or thing of merely illusory power, status, efficacy, etc. An illustration part of which is given a transparent effect so as to permit representation of details otherwise hidden from view, the inner workings of a mechanical device. So basically seeing or hearing things that aren't there. But yes, it's phantom, but like it's not really phantom. Like you don't really use that terminology for things like you don't really use phantoms for that type of terminology. Um, what it's actually referred to is like auditory or visual hallucinations or like other types of hallucinations. So basically she was hallucinating like really badly. So okay. So Janny normally likes animals, but most of her animal friends, cats, rats, dogs, and birds, are phantoms or hallucinations that only she can see. Janny Schofield has schizophrenia, or January Schofield has schizophrenia, potent psychiatric drugs in dose that would stagger most adults seem to skip off her. She is among the rarest of the rare, a child seemingly born mentally ill. I mean, it could be phantoms, but I don't know. Like I've never really heard that term. Well, I have heard it like things like phantom smells and stuff like that, which is common for people if they've lost their sense of smell. you start having like phantom smells. It's really weird. I've never experienced it because I've never lost my sense of smell. But yeah. So like phantoms like dogs, rats, cats, and birds. I already read that part. But then it tells you what she has battled. She suffers from delusions, hallucinations, and paroxysms of rage so severe that not even her parents feel safe. She's threatened to climb into an oven. She's kicked and tried to bite her little brother. I'm Janny, and I have a cat named Emily 54, she says by way of introduction. And I'm Saturn, the rat's babysitter. She locks her fingers in front of her chest and flexes her wrists furiously, a tic that surfaces when she's anxious. It's very normal. It's very normal to have tics sometimes. Or like a nervous habit. Well, some people have tics, some people have tics, others do not, but it is very common to have nervous habits. Um okay. She announces that she wants to be a veterinarian. I'm empathetic with rats, she says. Asked what empathetic means, she smiles confidently. It means you like rats. The doctors have been trying a new antipsychotic medication called Mobin. Janny knows she is sick and that people want to help her. Is the Mobin working? Her mother asks. Janny during a visit. No, I have more friends. Susan Schofield looks crestfallen. Either it's pronounced Schofield or Schofield. She and her husband Michael have brought have brought French fries. Sorry, I feel like I can't pronounce things right today. Janny takes a bite, runs around the room, and circles back for another bite. You want the rats and cats to go away, don't you? Susan asks, trying to make contact with her daughter. Janny stuffs a French fry into her mouth. See, it's too early in the morning. I can't today. It's too early. It's only 8:15 in the morning. No, she says, they're cool. The rats are cool. About 1% of adults have schizophrenia. Okay, so the thing with schizophrenia is early onset schizophrenia, like what Janny supposedly has. People have been, well, like with claims and things, have been saying, she's not actually schizophrenic and that it was a misdiagnosis. But I mean, you like that's just claims. I mean, I don't I don't know. I've I've only watched her show a couple of times. And it was like several years ago. So, okay. So, also, the thing about early onset schizophrenia or childhood schizophrenia is very rare. Or like early onset of any medical condition is very rare. Like, for example, medical conditions that you'd see in older people mainly can occur in younger people, um, which is like, early onset or child onset. Oh my gosh, like, why do I keep jumping? About 1% of adults have schizophrenia. Most become ill in their late teens or 20s. Approximately 1 in 10 will commit suicide. It's really scary. Doctors and other mental health experts don't fully understand the disease, which has no cure. This doesn't have a cure. I mean, I wouldn't say she was misdiagnosed because I don't know, but pretty hard to it's pretty hard to misdiagnose a condition this severe. Um or it can be pretty severe. Um it's pretty hard to uh misdiagnose a severe condition, a severe lifelong condition or mental illness in this case. Um, so, doctors and other mental health experts don't fully understand the disease, which has no cure. Jani's extreme early onset has left them almost helpless. The rate of onset in children 13 and unders in about 1 in 30,000 to 50,000. In a national study of 110 children, only one was diagnosed as young as age 6. Um, like that's really young. She's I'm pretty sure she's the only person that was diagnosed that young. Um, so child onset schizophrenia is 20 to 30 times more severe than adult onset schizophrenia. If you don't know what like the whole terminology is, it's child onset or early onset is child onset slash early onset schizophrenia is when someone starts experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia in childhood. And that could range from like any age. Um, but you get diagnosed later most of the time than adult onset schizophrenia. And adult onset schizophrenia is when, well, basically child onset schizophrenia slash adolescent onset schizophrenia. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry for the background noise. Okay. Is when you start experiencing symptoms at an early age or in a later age. This is a really scary thing to happen to someone. So, adult onset schizophrenia, says Dr. Nitin Gogte, a neurologist at the National Institute of Mental Health, who helps direct the children's study, the largest such study in the world on the illness. Yes, this is an illness. This isn't this isn't like a this isn't like a virus that can be eradicated. This is an illness. Um, this is a mental illness. Okay, 95% of the time that they are awake, these kids are actively hallucinating. I don't think I've seen anything more devastating in all of medicine. For Janny's parents, the most pressing issue is where Janny should live. She has been on the UCLA psych ward where she was placed during an emergency since January 16th. The ward is not designed for long-term care. So basically, when you're in from what I know from research, when you're in a hold, they do I don't know, like usually the longest is sorry, there's so many noises. There's usually it's like 24 to 48 hour hold. Um, Psych hold for evaluation. And usually after the stay period, then you get discharged if you're okay to be discharged. The ward is not designed for long-term care. Janny can't return to her family's apartment in Valencia. Last fall, she tried to jump out of a second-story window. I remember them talking about this in the show. I remember them talking about this in the show. If you haven't watched the show, they probably have it on Discovery Plus. I don't know. They don't air it. They don't air reruns of it anymore. So, I mean, they may air something similar during Psych Week, but I don't know. If you don't know when Psych Week is, it is Psych Week on Discovery Health and Discovery Life is basically in the month of May. So, like, anytime in the month of May. Okay, her parents, Michael, a college English instructor, and Susan, a former radio traffic reporter, must decide how to provide as much stability as possible for their daughter while also trying to protect their 18-month-old son. Mind you, this article is 7 years old, and these people are living somewhat happy lives now. I mean, Janny is an adult now as of this article being published. Since this article has been published, she's an adult now. So it kind of tells you her story through this article. Kind of tells you her story through the article or whatever. So, born August 8th, 2002, Janny was different from the start, sleeping fitfully for only about 4 hours a day. Most infants sleep 14 to 16 hours a day. If you don't know, they have there's specific times or specific hour stretches people should be people should be sleeping. And usually that type of sleep pattern, or I don't know, that type of sleep pattern isn't normal for a baby. That only sleeps a couple hours a day. So well, kind of. Right. If Janny was 16, there would be resources. But very few hospitals, private or public, will take a 6-year-old. Okay, so it basically tells you her story. Basically tells you her story and what occurred with her. So, born August 8th, 2002, Janny was different from the start, sleeping fitfully for only about 4 hours a day. That is, okay, the recommended amount of sleep for infants are 14 to 16 hours a day because, babies mainly sleep. Babies sleep a lot. Babies need a lot of sleep. Um, and most of the time they are, sleeping. Um, okay, so it says most infants sleep 14 to 16 hours a day. Only constant high energy stimulation kept Janny from screaming. For the first 18 months, we would take her to malls, play areas, IKEA, anywhere we could find crowds. It was impossible to overstimulate her. We would leave at 8 in the morning and be gone for 14 hours. Wow, that is crazy. That's a crazy amount of time. We could not come home until Janny had been worn out enough so that she would sleep a couple of hours. When Janny turned 3, her tantrums escalated. She lasted 3 weeks in one preschool and 1 week in another. She demanded to be called by different names. Rainbow one day, blue-eyed tree frog the next. I remember pretty much all of this. I remember pretty much all of this because, as I said, I watched the show when I was a kid. So, when it aired, I would watch it all the time. So, I remember some of this being talked about on the show, but there's probably more to this than what the show obviously depicted, cuz reality TV only shows so much. Or health documentaries only show so much of a person's story. Okay. When Janny turned 3, her tantrums escalated. She lasted 3 weeks in one preschool and 1 week in another. She demanded to be called by different names. Make-believe friends filled her days. Mostly rats and cats and sometimes little girls. She had this quote-unquote make-believe friend named 24 Hours, and that was the little girl they were referring to. They were referring to 24 Hours. I believe. She threw her shoes at people. When angry, she tried to push the car out of gear while her dad was driving. The usual disciplinary strategies parents use to teach their young children proper behavior, timeouts, rules, positive rewards, failed time and time again for the Schofields. She would go, okay, quote, she would go into these rages where she would scream, hit, kick, scratch, and bite. She could say, "Mommy, I love you," and seconds later switch to being really violent. Kindergarten lasted 1 week. The Schofields consulted doctors and heard myriad. Wait, no. I think it's pronounced myriad opinions. Heard myriad opinions, bipolar disorder, attention, ADHD, um, ineffective parenting. No one considered that she was schizophrenic, or, that it could be schizophrenia. In December 2007, they were referred to Dr. Woodall, um, a psychiatrist in Glendale. Jannie's medical records for the following year depict a doctor searching for effective medications while her patient slid further into a world stalked by rats and cats. July 8th, 2008. So she was diagnosed, I'm pretty sure she was diagnosed in 2000. I'm pretty sure she was diagnosed in 2009. Yeah, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure she was diagnosed in 2009. But yeah, like with certain mental health conditions, it can take ages to get, the proper diagnosis. Like some people that are headache sufferers, may think they're having like migraines for several years and then find out several years later, after like, having multiple episodes, multiple episodes and multiple attacks or something like that, for example, that they are, that it's something completely different, or that it's not XYZ, it's whatever, it's whatever it is. So it's kind of going in a list. Okay, so December 2007, they were referred to they were referred to a psychiatrist. And then it kind of goes down the list of dates. It goes down a list of dates. Um, it explains her tics or whatever. So or it explains her symptoms basically. July 8th, 2008, claps hands, hops, tick like, food can't touch. Wow. I'm just taking all this. I'm just taking all this in. Food can't touch. Strips clothes off if she thinks they have a spot. Wants order and perfection in play toys and stories. November 11th, 2008. Talking to a bird named 34 on her hand, drawing on her clothes and body with permanent marker, screaming at school and in the waiting room. January 7th, 2009. Patient is in a state of psychosis, talking to rats, naming them, the days of the week. I believe it would be in the best interests of January and her family to have her placed in residential treatment. Her parents didn't want to do that to her. If you watch videos on it, if you watch videos on it and if you watch the show, they have said multiple times that they did not want to admit her to a residential treatment facility. They wanted to give her as much normalcy as they could with her condition, with her, with her current situation. Um Her parents named her January because they loved the sound of it. But this year, the month of January became the breaking point for a fragile family. Um, Janny's torment had escalated through much of 2008. She was hospitalized last fall for 3 weeks. Janny tried and failed again to attend school. She choked herself with her hands, hit her head on the walls, and she wanted to die. Oh my god, this is so scary. Oh my god. Like I remember hearing about this on the show, but like reading this for myself makes it even more scary. Okay, this is why things like this is why mental health is very important to me, because like these situations can happen, and you're like baffled, or you're misdiagnosed, or people think you have one thing when you don't have it at all, or like given you're given all these options or none at all. Like it's a really scary situation to be put in. um Home was a nightmare and school was a nightmare. A new imaginary friend named 400 the cat moved in. He told her to kick and hit other people. Basically, what these hallucinations do to someone who has to someone who suffers from schizophrenia or psychosis, these hallucinations tell them to hurt themselves or hurt other people, or um like do other quote unquote harmful things. um and they can be pretty violent. um or they can or it can show up as an argument. There's a ton of different, or like they would, like you know arguments would occur or whatever, if it wasn't calmed down or appeased in a timely manner. So a new imaginary friend named 400 the cat moved in. He told her to kick and hit other people. We realized she didn't control her imaginary friends, they controlled her. Many phantoms populated her mind now. 2 little girls named 100 Degrees and 24 Hours, 200, the rat, Magical 61, the cat, and 400. Susan, 39 at the time, was laid off from her job in September, and although money was tight, she felt almost relieved. Janny needed constant supervision. Woodall described to try a new drug, Haldol, 1 milligram twice a day. It seemed to calm Janny, and 400 the cat went away. The Schofields made another attempt at first grade, sending Janny to school January 12th. But that day, the muscles on the left side of her body locked up, and the school called paramedics. She had developed dystonia, a movement disorder that causes involuntary contractions of muscles. It's a side effect of high doses of some psychotropic medications. On January 16th, Michael dropped his daughter off at school again. She seemed fine that morning, he said. She was taking a lower dose of Haldol plus medications to quell psychosis and stabilize mood. But at 9:15, she began screaming that she wanted to see her brother Bodhi. She threw her pencils and shoes, tried to jump out of the classroom window, then ran down the halls. I remember this because there was an episode talking about this. At 9:15, she began screaming that she wanted to see her brother Bodhi. She threw her pencils and shoes, tried to jump out of the classroom window, then ran down the halls. The assistant principal called Michael and told him to come and take his daughter home. Michael was drained. I knew if we took her home, we couldn't get any help anywhere, he says. We were fed up with nobody believing us and nobody helping us. He refused. The principal called the LA County Sheriff's Department and reported that the parents had abandoned their misbehaving child. So basically, the school thought that she was misbehaving and, didn't know that it was something deeper than, misbehavior or like behavioral issues. Three school psychologists were summoned by the assistant principal and a sheriff's deputy, called for a team of emergency psychiatric workers. Janny was locked in an empty office, playing with 24 hours. The experts concluded that she was psychotic and took her to UCLA. Each day before the Schofields' visit, they stop at a Burger King for lunch and order takeout for Janny. So many people thought okay, so basically, people thought that, she was bratty, she had behavioral issues, and, and a bunch of other things were most likely said to them during this time. So many people thought we had a bratty kid, says Michael, feeding Bodhi as he squirms in a high chair in the restaurant. UCLA was the first to tell us, it's not your fault. There is something wrong with her brain. When her family arrives, Janny looks surprised to see them. Although they visit every day, she is wearing a lime green t-shirt and pink skirt with turquoise rubber shoes. Her hair is tousled, her legs carry the last traces of baby fat. Susan dabs toothpaste on a toothbrush and runs it over her daughter's teeth for a few seconds, the only dental care Janny will allow. I'd rather be 16, Janny says, putting a hand on her hip, tossing a flirty look over her shoulder. I'm 14 on weekends, Thursdays, Wednesdays, and Tuesdays. She pauses, all except for Mondays. She loves Littlest Pet Shop toys, miniature animals with houses and furniture, and stacks them on a shelf in her room. Although she can't sit long enough to read a book, she's a voracious learner. She's also bright. Her IQ is 146. Over the years, Michael and Susan have entertained her by feeding her information well beyond her years. So basically, they mentioned this. Um, they mentioned that she was a quote unquote bright child at birth because they didn't know. Well, I mean, yeah, she is very smart. She is very smart, but like at the time they didn't know what they were dealing with. Um and she was a very advanced child, which means she was very smart. Um and she was seen as a very advanced child to her parents at the time, which she still is very smart, don't get me wrong. Um but like when you deal with something like that and other people don't understand, they may um you know they may see it as misbehavior or something else. um so it can be very difficult to advocate for things like this. um so although she can't sit still long enough to read a book, she is a voracious learner. She's also bright. Her IQ is 146. Over the years, Michael and Susan have entertained her by feeding her information well beyond her years. Specifics of evolution, the Roman Empire, the periodic table of elements. I can't even memorize the entire periodic table of elements. Um like I remember learning about it, but I can't like memorize it. Um Janny ta- like Susan asks, like she's about to ask a question and Janny interrupts her. Um, Janny talks about living in Calla, which is she described it as okay. Calla, she described it as a world only she can see where all her quote imaginary friends live. Um, and she's asked, "Where's Calla?" So basically, Calla, she explains where it is, and she says, Calla is on the border between this world and my other world. Janny's psychiatrist at UCLA, Dr. Karen Lim, has tried several medications. A whopping 300 milligrams of Thorazine manages to stop the psychosis, but it too causes dystonia. If you want me to like continue reading this, I'll probably do like another video on this. But like this is just like a sneak peek of what we're gonna be focused after the whole online school thing, which is like um I don't know, like talking about mental health and things things related to it. So this will probably be like a bonus episode or something. So yeah, stay tuned. I will upload this. I will upload this soon, and I will eventually finish the article at a different time, but it has been an hour and 44 minutes. It's almost been or not 44 minutes, 24 minutes. I'm sorry. I was looking at the seconds. But it's been an hour, but I've literally been filming for an hour and 25 minutes. So, yeah, I think I'm going to stop this and continue reading this at a later date. hope you guys enjoyed this bonus episode slash sneak peek upcoming episodes, bonus episode, or like upcoming section of the podcast episode or whatever. So yeah, with that said, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, and please subscribe if you are watching and or listening on YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. So with that said, I am going to go ahead and end this here and go eat breakfast, do all that stuff, and I will see you guys later. Bye guys.